Hello and welcome to another video. This time not about Terra though, but about automation and BeamNG instead. In this one we're gonna build a small car with too much power, sort of like a rally car but not really, and then drive it in BeamNG. Anyway, let's get right into it. I love lightweight cars, usually in coupe shape, but for this project we'll use the smallest modern hatchback body in the vanilla game. There is no need for any budget limitations, so we're just gonna go all out here. Of course that means we'll go with carbon fiber as panel material and we'll use the lowest weight chassis type. For the engine position and orientation, we're gonna go with front transverse. If we were to choose the longitudinal layout, we'd limit ourselves in terms of engine length due to the tiny car body. For the suspension type we'll have to go with the best of course, so pushrod in the back and double wishbone in the front. We're gonna start a completely new engine project for this car. I like the sound of inline 4 and inline 6 engines. Inline 6 is too long for this chassis of course, so inline 4 it is. And only the best materials are good enough. We're gonna make the longest engine we can fit, but we'll keep the stroke as short as possible so that the bottom end can withstand high RPM. That gives us a 2.4 liter engine, which is perfect for such a small car. Of course we also want as many valves as we can fit, so we go for dual overhead cam setup with 5 valves per cylinder. As materials for the bottom end, we'll just choose whatever allows for highest RPM and we'll increase the quality to the max. The rest of the settings will need to be adjusted all together, so I'm skipping over the compression ratio and cam profile for now, and we'll come back to it later. Of course variable valve timing is a must. Ah yes, of course we want the turbocharger. I'm not too sure about how to fine-tune the turbo, so a preset will have to do the job. Let's just raise the maximum boost a bit though. 2 bars seems reasonable, and of course the quality slider goes up all the way. For the fuel delivery, we want precise control, so direct injection is perfect, and we'll use the best fuel we can get. Let's raise the RPM limiter to 12k for now, and max out the quality settings. We'll adjust the rest of the settings in a minute. Let's choose an exhaust first. Since we're building a turbo engine, a bigger exhaust diameter is better. But even for naturally aspirated engines, I would first increase the exhaust diameter to the maximum and then reduce it for the maximum power output after adjusting everything else. A catalytic converter doesn't reduce power by much, and straight through mufflers are fine too. Typically both reduce the sound volume of the engine but increase the sound quality. We can see right away that the engine is already producing over 200 kilowatts and over 300 Newton meters of torque, but we can do better than that. The bottom end doesn't mind the 12k RPM limit, but the valves don't like it. Valve float basically means that the camshafts are spinning so fast that the valve springs cannot manage to close the valves in time. We'll reduce the RPM limit later, but for now let's just try to get even more power out of this engine. Since we're building a race car, there is actually no reason to go easy on the cam profile. Setting it to the maximum value increases power, but it makes the power band narrow. We still have over 300 Newton meters of torque between 5000 and let's say 8750 RPM. So this cam profile is fine. The compression ratio is already very high for 2 bars of turbo pressure, but let's see what we can do. Seems like we can get away with a compression ratio of 11.321, which is crazy at 2 bars of boost, but I guess the direct injection helps a lot when it comes to that. Let's adjust the fuel mixture and the ignition timing to get that last bit of power out of the engine, and set the RPM limiter to something more reasonable. Further increasing maximum boost doesn't really increase power anymore, so let's just stick to the 2 bar. Let's test the engine real quick. There's a couple of things that could be better, but this is already a decent engine, so let's just leave it at that. In the end, we got 366 kilowatts of power and 461 Newton meters of torque, which is plenty for what we're building. Time to get back to designing the car itself. We'll go for the 3-door hatchback version of the car. The next part is choosing a color and designing the looks of the car. There isn't really too much to say about that part, and it takes a while, so let's just time-lapse it while I shut up for a moment. Let me know in the comments below which color you would have chosen for this project. Well, there were clearly some issues with choosing a wing, but I think everything turned out well in the end. Let's do the rest of the setup. If we want to be able to get any power down to the ground, we have to go with an all-wheel drive system. A 7-speed sequential gearbox will fit this project nicely. We'll adjust the gear ratios later though. Let's make sure we add locking differentials and max out the quality settings. We'll be driving the car on tarmac mostly, so let's pick semi-slicks and set the tire width to 235, which is quite wide for a tiny car like this. For the rim diameter, we don't want the tire to be too low profile, but we also don't want the tire wall to be too high. 16-inch rims seem to be a good fit in this case. Next, let's set the rim offset so that the wheels are flush with the body of the car. I love how the wheels get more concave when you increase the offset. For the rim material, we'll go with magnesium in this case, and again let's set the quality settings to maximum. When it comes to brakes, we'll go with 6-piston carbon ceramics all the way around. If you can brake harder, that means you can drive faster for longer. So of course we also need the most aggressive brake pads we can get. For aerodynamics, we'll use an undertray that is optimized for downforce. We don't want to overdo it with downforce though, else the car will bottom out at high speeds, or we'll have to make the springs very stiff, which reduces mechanical grip. Though I guess the aerodynamic grip would make up for the loss in mechanical grip. Even though we already have huge brakes, let's give them some nice ventilation as well, to prevent brake fade at all cost. When it comes to the interior, we don't really need much. One seat would be enough, but since it's a rally car, sort of, let's just make it 2 seats. The basic interior does the job, and we already have enough entertainment under the bonnet. At first I thought hydraulic power steering would be nice, but the sportiness is higher if there is no power steering at all. So that's what we'll choose here. I also thought ABS is enough, but then decided that it's not. The car will already be rather unsafe with this much power in such a small chassis, so let's increase safety and drivability as much as possible. For the suspension, we'll go with whatever increases sportiness the most. so active sport springs and semi-active dampers. Even though I have a good understanding about how suspension geometry works, I'm not very experienced with making a setup from scratch, so we'll use a preset as basis. Ideally, we choose a preset, test it, then adjust it and test it again until we get a result we're happy with. In this case though, we'll just grab the preset, make some adjustments based on the suggestions we get, and call it a day. It seems like not having power steering reduces drivability a lot, so let's go back and change that after all. Electric variable power steering gives the second highest sportiness value, so that's what we'll choose here. Next we need to get back to the gearbox ratios. Right now the top speed is only 212 km per hour, which is too low. So let's change the slider until we find the point where the top speed is highest. This graph in the middle helps a lot, which is why we skipped the settings earlier. In the suggestions we can see that the dampers are a bit too hard, so let's reduce those values. Now that we're done building the car, let's export it to BeamNG. First, I'd like to mention that I'm using a controller when playing BeamNG. I'm not very comfortable with that since I'm not really used to it. It's been years since I last played any racing games with a controller, and using the thumbstick for steering feels weird to me. I do have a Logitech G29 steering wheel, but my computer desk is too wobbly for that. So I will have to buy or build a stand for racing wheels at some point. In the meantime, I will just have to use the controller. Anyway, let's see how our sort of rally car performs. Right away, when driving this car, I noticed that it understeers a lot. It's also very clear that it's fast. This is not surprising though, since the car only weighs 1135 kilograms and has plenty of power and torque. This lap you see me drive here isn't perfect, but it seems to be going reasonably well considering I'm using a controller. So let's see what the lap time is and compare it to some of the cars that come with BeamNG. The first lap without crashing counts. We got a lap time of 1 minute and 28 seconds .028. I tested 4 more cars on the same track. Each time I tried until I managed to get a more or less clean lap. Here's a table showing you the lap times I managed to get in those cars. As you can see, our sort of rally car managed to beat all 4 of them on this particular track. I'll upload a separate unlisted video showing the laps in those 4 cars. If you want to see how I got those lap times, you can click the link in the video description below. Well, that concludes this video. I plan on still uploading videos about Terra on a regular basis since I play it daily, but I also want to make some more videos about other games. Let me know what you think of this type of content. Also let me know in the comments if you want me to build more cars in automation, or play the campaign mode, get more lap times for other racetracks or cars in BeamNG, or if you have any other suggestions. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, bye!